Hello, everybody. Shaquita Graham here. I'm with my great friend, Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses. Together, we're Married Women's Business, and you can find us at marriedwomensbiz.com. So listen, we're going to talk about Steve Harvey and this whole situation. He basically had trashed, well, people are saying that he trashed Trump throughout the whole election. Then he went and met with Trump. And then he said in some articles, he said that he was surprised about the backlash that he received from meeting with Trump. So
he was hurt.
Yeah, he was hurt. And so basically he said, on a personal note, a lot of y'all hurt me, meaning us Black people, I suppose. And he says that he didn't expect the backlash to be so fierce. He says, I understand if I'm going to get stabbed at, but at least while you're stabbing me, you should understand my intent, he continued. There's another publication which basically says, why they critique him, saying that Steve Harvey was hardly quiet against Trump. So to turn around and get in bed with the enemy is going to cause a backlash. Why didn't he explain he was going to meet Trump? So that's where we stand. So what do you have to say, Noma?
Excuse me. Okay, so when we were talking before, I said I have two kind of almost opposing thoughts about this.
Right.
The first one was before I did a little more digging. So the first time was I just saw Steve Harvey meet with Donald Trump, and I was seeing the outrage amongst a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw him come out of it, and he said, well, I have a positive outlook about this. That was basically all I saw. And I couldn't understand why people were so outraged, because the way I was looking at it was, I've seen a couple of segments of Steve Harvey's show. And one thing I know about him is he has a young Black men's organization, which he does really, really positive things for young Black men. And that's not just something I'm saying. I've been hearing back from a lot of people saying he really is doing positive things. So in my mind, I thought, okay, so he has this organization. His wife also has the sister organization, which is for young Black women. And I think his daughters are also involved in this. So I thought to myself, okay, if he's doing this, meeting with the president, and he's a person who's representing young Black men, well, yeah, a lot of people spent a lot of time criticizing Barack Obama for totally ignoring the Black community. Here's Steve Harvey getting ahead of it. He's going to meet with the president even before he gets into office to see what he can hash out for young Black men. Okay. And then there's the other hand where we started digging a little bit more between you and I, and we saw that he was actually talking really badly about Donald Trump. There's even video segments where he's talking about Donald Trump and saying things like he is, the pea grabber. There's no way he can be president. There's no working with this person. There's no redeeming himself after doing this, and on and on and on and on. And then he turns around and goes and meet with him and says, oh, great guy. So there is that thing of, which makes him look very two-faced, and it makes you wonder which stance he's taking.
All right. Well, I think that Steve Harvey is on record for saying that he doesn't give a dang, using another word, about slavery. So to me, that comment just encompasses why this all went wrong. Basically, when we've been under a system of white supremacy for over 500 years, and the way that, from my understanding, white supremacy became, or imperialism or colonization happened, is that first the white supremacists started on the shores of Africa, just trading. Then they would give little trinkets to get further and further to the interior, further and further into the community, until they could finally start pulling everybody to the slave ships and clamp down to the point where they can start just enslaving Black people routinely and moving them out of the country. So when we look at how white supremacy operates, we see the same pattern. And I think that's the problem. I do understand meeting with the president can be seen as a good thing, talking to people with differing views, trying to negotiate. But I think the backlash is really what is about what seems to be nothing more than a photo op. You know, generally, we've seen this happen over and over again where, you know, celebrities and different Black people come out to give other Black people the false impression that these politicians care. You know, maybe I think people believe that Steve Harvey is trying to legitimize Trump and make people believe that Trump cares even a little bit about the Black community, that he doesn't have this racist past, that he will do something besides harm the Black community. But, you know, my basic premise is that I will feel good about Steve Harvey, a comedian, a talk show host, going to so-called represent the Black community, the urban community with the president, when Miley Cyrus or Jerry Seinfeld goes to represent the white community, or Jackie Chan goes to the president, to the White House to represent the Asian community. To me, this just does not seem sincere or real, because I understand the people that we're dealing with, the history of how they've dealt with us. It's very seductive. The way they deploy these plans, they use entertainers that Black people love as a symbol and nothing more. So I think that's what the backlash is about.
Right, and I understand the backlash as well, and even see where a lot of people can feel like this is just more of the same. Mm-hmm. However, my line of thinking is this. Well, first of all, to address the Jackie Chans and the Miley Cyruses, white people do not need anybody speaking on their behalf. Everything.
They have people doing it.
This country functions on their behalf.
Right.
Okay, so that would be the most ridiculous thing. If I saw a white person, it's like saying, can we have a White History Month, which I know some racist white supremacists have said in the past when they want to stop people from celebrating Black history. It's ridiculous. It's like saying we need a men's rights organization to stop the subjugation of men. It's kind of stupid because men have not historically been subjugated by women to the extent that women were subjugated by men. And I'm talking about white people here, which birthed the feminist movement. So for them to turn around and try to pretend to be victims when they're not being victimized in the way that Black people uniquely are in this country wouldn't make sense. So having said that, I honestly don't really care who goes to meet with the president, because I did ask that question on Facebook. I was like, okay, if not Steve Harvey, because then there was an uproar like a couple of weeks before that about Kanye West, okay? Kanye West, I did question that because his mental capacity has been brought to question very recently as well. So yeah, that I was like, wait a minute now, okay, wait a minute. However, if his mental capacity was not in question, I wouldn't have a problem with him meeting either. We just have to see what it is they're trying to meet for and what it is they're trying to do. We cannot deny, Shaquita, in the Black community, unfortunately or fortunately, people love celebrities, they follow celebrities, they worship celebrities even. President Obama got to run for 8 years on that. People just loving him for just loving him. So if you can get a celebrity who has enough wherewithal to put together a plan, and by a plan I mean a list of demands that are actionable and that can actually produce results, and he goes to the White House, I don't care who's in there, if it's Donald Trump, so be it. If he can go in there and put down some things on paper and say, look, this is how we're suffering, this is how we need help, this is the state of our communities, or whatever it is. And these are the things that we're going to require from him. And Donald Trump or whoever's in the office is going to say, okay, I've heard you, and let's meet again to discuss how we can change it. Whatever it is, then so be it. I have no problem with that. So we can't really get angry or outraged or whatever it is, because we don't know yet what's going to happen. I will give you credit for saying that we've seen this movie before. You know, it's just played over and over and over. So people are outraged because they've already seen this happening. But in the past, we've always had people who were so-called leaders, right, going on our behalf. And here we are, still asking for the very same basic things. In fact, some stuff hasn't even gotten better, it's gotten worse. So
Yeah,
I don't care who goes there. Just if he's taking some valid concerns and then the concerns are heard and something is done, that's what I'm attached to.
Sure. I mean, I personally don't expect that the White House is going to do anything for me because I have not seen politicians do much for the Black community. So I personally am not concerned for my own welfare about what Steve Harvey does. Black people tend to take on an individualistic mindset and they move forward despite what the community. So if this could benefit his organization from his standpoint, it's like, yeah, I'm going to go meet with him because I am going to make money for my family and I am going to make sure that my family is good, regardless of what happens to the rest of the Black population. And so, when people say things like, I think that it's possible we could have peace with Trump and we can, talk to him and he's going to change things and our community is going to stop he's going to stop the government of the United States from, instituting plans of white supremacy in the education system and in the legal system and in the medical system. That's a fairy tale. There's a saying, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So I think we have to engage in serious critical thinking and pattern recognition, because if somebody continually hurts you when you get close to them, then you have to ask yourself, why do you keep falling for that same thing? And that is the problem. If you do feel that, okay, well, fine, let's see what happens, we want to, explore this, I think that it's logical that people should be skeptical. I mean, if people aren't skeptical, then they aren't thinking. That's just like another saying. If everybody in the room is agreeing, then somebody's not thinking. But I do want to read real quick from this book, because people have studied this phenomenon, Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation. She says there's such thing called showcase Blacks. Showcasing prominent Blacks accomplishes several things. It deceives the Black collective about the realities of racism. It neutralizes the legitimate claims of racism by Blacks. It offers a pressure relief valve for the explosive buildup of frustration and rage within a Black collective. And, she goes on to say more, but she summarized that in 3 points. That is what's happening. Is what has happened forever. Since this television, radio has been around, Black people have been, Black entertainers have been traipsed out in front of us, and we haven't seen policy change as a result of that so far. And my last point is just think about Dr. King. Although I'm very far from an integrationist, when you see pictures or footage of him meeting with officials, they're signing documents. You say that, white people don't need a representative. They have them, though. It's called the House of Representatives, the Congress. They represent white people. And they go to the president and they say, here's our agenda. We need you to sign this. When you see Dr. King, he has the aura of, listen, we're going to meet with this official about business. We have a reason and we plan to accomplish this. We plan to accomplish that. And, when people are handling business and they're experts at doing that, they are very deliberate, calculated, and they have a very clear agenda. And that's where we're skeptical of the comedian and the talk show host, Steve Harvey.
Right. I know it's funny when we just call him a comedian and a talk show host, but he actually does have a foundation and he actually has done positive things. And I'm not saying, look, I don't care. Like I think I said that on the onset. I don't care if he meets or doesn't meet, my feelings are not embroiled in this, because we're at a point now where anything that anybody does is going to cause a lot of public opinion, public outrage, and so on. However, I did ask a question, and so far not really got a clear answer. If not Steve Harvey, then who? Some people did answer, including yourself. You gave
I sure did.
some names of maybe these people should be the ones representing us, and so on, which is fine. However, we have nowhere to go but up. What's the other option?
Continue to chase our tail and do the same thing we've been doing and getting the same result.
Don't demand anything.
Nobody said don't meet and don't demand anything. And that's why people are, they're minimalizing the whole idea of what the Black community is saying. I'm proud of people in the Black community for not standing by and watching the same thing happen over and over again and be like, yeah, Steve Harvey is really qualified to come in here and make changes in the urban community. And I think in the comments section on your post, I said, when you need a plumber, when you have plumbing problems, you call a plumber, and so I don't want to cut you off though, but I just wanted to respond to that part.
I understand. And I understand what you're saying. I was one of the people who, when Steve Harvey first wrote a book about that Think Like a Man or whatever it was, I was very critical of him. I was like, you know what? I've been married X number of years, and the last thing I'm ever going to do is listen to a comedian who's been married 3 times tell me what to do in my relationship. So I do understand the credibility of a person and understanding where they're coming from before you take them on and say, yes, please go represent me. I do get that. However, I'm still saying, though, that he has proven himself. And I know there's going to be people who think I'm a Steve Harvey apologist or love him or something like that, which I actually don't. I'm just saying that I'm seeing too much of outrage and a negative response to anything that anybody does to try and collectively move everybody.
Anything that anybody does?
Right. Even with what's the guy's name from Grey's Anatomy? I can't remember. I think his name is Jesse something, but he's an actor. Mm-hmm. And he started being very, very vocal. And I was actually like, wow, he must not value that job of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, Jesse Williams.
Right, Jesse Williams. And even with him, there were still people who had a problem. There were still people who had a problem and who were outraged. How dare he this, that? Well, he's doing this and he shouldn't do that. And what? Wait a minute. Is he even Black? Look at his eyes. And there was always outrage. And that's what I'm trying to say. Rather than us focusing at some point on what can we get out of this. And yeah, maybe Steve Harvey's in for himself. He may very well be. He may just be. We do have to remember, you said it correctly. This is the guy who said slavery didn't matter. Or that he didn't care about it or something like that, which I think if you expanded the context, maybe would lessen the blow of that. But he did say that. He's also the guy who brought Paula Deen after said she wanted little N-words serving her on platters and half naked and all this other stuff. He brought
her to his foundation.
Right. And he brought her on his show so she can boo-hoo cry about how hurt she is that people think she's a racist and so on. So I'm not minimizing the things that have happened in the past at all. I understand it, but I am still saying I have no problem with who it is that goes through those doors. As long as that person has compiled a list of actionable demands. And if the person in the office is willing to do something, at this point, we don't know. And maybe you're right. Maybe people do have the right to just be pessimistic and say, we've seen this show before.
I don't think it's pessimistic at all. It's critical thinking. To say that we shouldn't look at the past behavior of people when everything that we do is judged by our past. A credit report is about the way you pay your bills in the past. Your transcripts are for your education are about how you conducted yourself in class. Your resume is about how you conducted yourself on a job, because that is the best indicator of future behavior. Right. That is critical thinking. That's logic. Right. Therefore, you just went through a litany of things that Steve Harvey has done that shows that he minimizes, or he really doesn't have a very strong pulse of the Black community and what we need. For you to have someone who spoke so adoringly about the times of slavery, you bring her to a charity organization with young Black males. Do you know how dangerous that is? When
he brought Paula Deen.
Yeah, Paula Deen. So again, that is an indication of your behavior and what we can expect from you. And the same thing with this continual script of, we are going to find a Black entertainer and bring them out in front of you and make you feel good, but we're not going to do anything. When people handle business, they use contracts, they use pens, they have agendas laid out. If you're representing me, not just Steve Harvey, it seems like you would say, hey guys, listen, I'm on my radio show today. I'm going to meet with Trump tomorrow. Look, I'm excited about what we're going to do in the Black community. I really think that Trump, although I may not have been in love with him, I think we can get something done here. I think that, maybe he'll do some new business loans.
Didn't he do that though? Didn't he do that?
I do not recall that, but at the same time, this again is the same pattern. So people would be, in my mind, I would be skeptical of people who didn't question this.
Right. I'm skeptical too. Right. I'm skeptical too. I'm just saying that we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if somebody has a felony record of murder and rape. I don't know that they're going to rape me or murder me, but
right, you wouldn't take the chance.
Skeptical.
I think also one of the things that we have to take into consideration, or at least that I'm taking into consideration, is, a lot of people had a lot of hope when Obama went into office, and they thought that, okay, this is the first time a Black person has ever gone into office. Maybe finally, some of these things that we've been saying really need to change. Maybe he'll do just at least one or some of them, or at least will be heard, and he'll start a process for something to happen. So, if you ask a lot of people, they say that didn't happen. They say that didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we both have some good points here. I mean, we definitely need to, I agree, we need to take some approach. We're going to have to, in some way, have a process of negotiation. And I think the Black community should chime in on, like you said, well, who should go?
Right.
And what should they be saying?
And that's what I said, Shaquita. Sorry to interject. That's what I said from the onset. I was like, I didn't say, don't Steve go or should Steve go or nothing. All I said was, if not him, then who? And if it's who we say it is, what are they bringing to, what are they asking for? What do they want?
Yeah, but I think this backlash is moving in that direction. Like, look, Trump, we don't want an entertainer to represent us. If that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to do something other than help Steve Harvey's organization, we're not buying that. And we don't want an entertainer representing us, at least in this way. We want to see solid change. And I think that we should continue to push back for that and really have an attitude about it. I mean, when you see other groups, when they want something, they go for the jugular.
Those other groups,
we want dogs protected.
Other groups, though, Shaquita, we have to take into consideration. Other groups have money, power, influence, And we could too, collectively, if we really got on the same page about a lot of stuff. Because just to go on to another story that was trending this week was Jennifer Holliday, the singer who was going to sing at the inauguration, and then finally changed her mind. It eventually was revealed that she didn't change her mind because there was a huge backlash from Black people, which there was. Apparently there were death threats because people were so offended by her singing. They felt like she was accepting of all the things that Donald Trump had said about Black people, minorities, and so on and so on and so on. So there was a strong resistance to that. But she actually, it turns out, she said that a group of gay people actually approached her and told her that, look, we're really against Trump. We've supported your career for all these years, and we respectfully ask that you do not perform. And then she didn't perform. And the reason why is because she knows that that group or those group of people have a lot of money, power, and influence, and they can take her career down. They can make it so she never, ever, ever works again. Now, if Black people could collectively pool themselves together to have that much power and that strong of a voice, then it would be something.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that Black people need to do, white people need to do, Chinese people need to do, but that doesn't mean that our voices, we shouldn't use that. And I think that everybody as a collective saying, listen, we're not falling for these same shenanigans. We're not falling after 600 years. I mean, there's a lot of people take this lightly, but there are a lot of people suffering. Yeah. There are hundreds of thousands of people that have been wrongly convicted and placed in jail. Their families have to move on without them, without their economic support. Their lives are taken from them. There's people their lives are actually taken from them in the streets. Right. So yes, we are very serious about who is going to represent these issues, as we should be. It's not a personal dig against Steve Harvey, because like you said, I don't care who goes in there, but don't expect me to feel good because you went. Don't expect me to feel good because one Black person became president, when there's hundreds of thousands of people and even millions of people, when you look at global white supremacy, that are suffering, and their situation and their scenario is not being addressed. Not only that, but it's being repressed and they're being oppressed. So that is why I think the backlash is reasonable. And I hope that something comes out of it. Maybe he'll look and say, you know what? People don't believe that I'm really for the Black community. I'm really trying to do something, and I am. Bam, this is what I'm doing. This is where we're going. We hope we see that, Steve. But until then, we have to be skeptical of you. And that's why you're skeptical. Like if you have a doctor or anybody, you're like, well, let me see your resume. Let me see what you're about, you know.
If you're a Black person, period, you're skeptical of any doctor. Because again, history teaches us that you can't assume that everybody you come across is going to do the right thing or do right by you. So I do agree with that. I think we can agree that we think that some demands should be made. Yeah, some demands should be made. There are certain things that need to change. And I again go back to the beginning of, we need to move the conversation away from being outraged by who's going and focus on who we want to go. And when they get there, these are the things that we want addressed. That's where our conversation needs to shift.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the beginning. Right.
No hot sauce, pencils and pens, people, contracts. Law,
yes, and do something that we can bring up on a piece. I hesitate to go into this next conversation because it's a whole nother one, because it's unconstitutional. It's wrong to kill a person on camera while they're running away. And it's happening anyway, in spite of the fact that it's written, but that's a conversation for another day. We do have to start somewhere. And the starting point is identifying who exactly it is that we think will represent the issues that are right on the forefront the best.
Basically, well said, Noma. So listen, guys, you know, we're going to go more in depth because there has been a flurry of responses. I want to read some of the responses. I want to show some of the memes. I want Noma, you know, she has her perspective and I have mine. We want to go further into that. So you can see an extended cut at marriedwomensbiz.com. You know, we have to make sure that we are respecting the rules of these gigantic platforms who police us daily. So we are going to leave off some of the more lively responses, and you'll be able to see them at marriedwomensbiz.com. Also, Noma and I are doing a webinar on winning in business and marriage. We want to keep Black communities strong by having families that are involved in business, but at the same time, there can be tensions between being in business and being in marriage. My husband's an entrepreneur, so am I. Noma's been an entrepreneur and wife. We've been married a combined total of like 25 years. So go to mwbevent.com and register for the webinar.
So the webinar's on the 23rd. I just wanted to throw that in there. It's on January the 23rd. That's a Monday, and you can find it at mwbevent.com. And the cost is just $20 for that information, which personally, between Shaquita and I and how much we share, I think we're crazy for only charging that much, but it is what it is. mwbevent.com. It's on January the 23rd, and it is $20. Drop a comment and let us know if you're coming.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. And thank you, Noma, for being on this segment with me and sharing your views.
Thanks, Shaquita. Thanks, everybody.